This is going to be a multi-part video, and I got a ps5 controller that I bought used, and it has an obvious problem. An analog stick looked like it's either broken or just the knob itself pulled out. So we're going to take a look. I took off just the faceplate. That's a pretty straightforward one. And what I'm probably going to do, not to make it any worse, this is already damaged. I'm just going to take a cutter. I'm going to cut around that plastic just if I can push it back in, because it's pretty much squished anyway, so I should probably try to limit the damage. This is part 2. What I did is cut out this piece carefully with the side cutter without damaging anything on the controller. And if we look at the analog stick inside, it looks physically okay. But now I'm going to check it on Windows. There's this program that's free, DS4 Windows, and you can see the analog stick drifting up a bit. So this is actually would be useless. The second one seems to be fine. So it's probably drifting up is my guess, and somebody tried to fix it by pushing up and down really super hard, and it got dislodged. You'd have to push really hard. But obviously that didn't fix it, so now I will have to replace that piece. I took the controller apart, and this is a little bit different from my previous ones I've seen. I'm not too familiar with this motherboard and this version, but it has 2 sets of feedback motors for vibration. So to make things easier, I'm just going to unsolder those, just so you can take the board out and don't put any chance on damaging any of the plastic on there, because this one is in actually really good shape. So I'm just going to take a hot iron, remove those 4 wires on each side, and we'll take a look at the board next. So here's the motherboard from the controller, and this is the one that was damaged, drifting. And this is probably the hardest part, is trying to remove these pieces. So I'm going to show 3 different ways, and the way I recommend for the easiest way. First way you can try is using a soldering gun. Using braid, using lots of flux, and you could try to suck out each one. That is actually more difficult than you think. Second version is I have a desoldering station, and basically I will put it on there and try to suck it out each joint. That's the second option. Third option is use a hot air, basically mask off everything, because you'll end up melting something. And finally, the last option which I would recommend, is I take a little pair of cutters, and honestly I just take apart the analog stick, take a soldering gun, and pull each piece out. But for the heck of it, I'm going to try and remove some of the joints first with the desoldering station. Using the soldering gun and the soldering wick, at least for me, I don't have much luck with that. There's always a little tiny piece stuck in there, and I usually can't get it out. So I'll see if I could try to film that once that thing heats up. All right, so I have the desoldering station. And I'm first going to try these ones right here. Let's see if I can zoom up this a little bit. So basically I'm going to stick it on it, move it around a few times, and hopefully the camera picks that up. I put lots of flux on there. And let's take a look. So you can see it totally came off. And I'll try another one. Another one's come off. See, that one never came off fully. So what I did is mask off this board, all the areas to protect, because you will easily melt any components, because this thing needs a lot of heat to get it out of the board, and it's kind of difficult because it's kind of small. It needs a good clamp to hold this board somehow without burning your hand. So I got the hot air at 378. I'm just going to spend some time here just heating it up. Going to try to focus the heat mostly going toward the outside of the board, so and I'll just try to keep an eye on it. I have to look really close. I'm gonna have to hold it up to see once I notice the solder melting. It's gonna be smoky, and the analog stick on the backside is probably going to melt. This is not the most powerful hot air station, but I typically use it for LEDs, but it'll do the job. It just takes a little more time. Because the whole board has to get the temperature here. It's starting to look shiny, so I'm gonna have to hold this down and give it a wiggle though. Let's see. So as you can see, it took a little bit of effort, but I was able to get it out. It's kind of hard to film, but basically I heated it up and I was able to pull it out with actually not even damaging this piece. So if you're really careful, you mask everything off. And we got this one off. I'm just going to double check the board. I'm going to unmask the board and we'll take a look at it to see if there's any damage. So the board looks okay, but I'm not going to show my next step. All right. It's pretty straightforward. Basically, I'm going to just take the solder wick, tons of flux. I'm going to clean off all these points here, and then we'll take a look. I might have to do both sides. So far, looks like it's fine. So we'll do a closer examination, maybe with the other camera after this. So just to double check the board, just for more curiosity's sake, to make sure I had no lifted traces, because I've done that a few times unintentionally, but looks pretty good. So what I have is this high cloud camera, and I got a little monitor I put on the wall here. And I just take a look, check all the holes, go to the back side. You can see some bits of solder flux, solder paste. Still need to be cleaned off before I put the other one back on. Otherwise, it looks pretty good. You could zoom it up if you needed to, I guess. Let's take a look here. Other areas you can look at. Let that thing. I got a homemade stand here, so just look at it. Take a look at some other neat things on this board here. This is where it contacts with that contact film for underneath the buttons where you push. You could check to see if there's any broken ones, or this is a pretty high magnification now. Let's take a look at some of the ICs on this board. And it's a little bit too high of a magnification. Pretty neat though. Very handy tool to have is having the camera. I know it's a bit of an investment, but it's basically kind of a lifesaver for me. But components these days are very tiny, as everyone knows. So next I'm going to clean this board up, and I'm going to solder in that Hall effect. And I only did one because I'm kind of curious to compare a factory one versus a Hall effect. And if it is a real big difference, I will change them. But basically, I would never change an analog stick unless it was actually damaged. Because I do have these other little pieces. You can try changing this to pots themselves. And that's what I would probably try first, instead of unsoldering that big beast. So I stuck a Hall effect controller stick on there. This one is specifically made for the ps5. I'm not really sure what the difference is between the models, but just got to solder it in. You could always try changing some of the other ones, like I was mentioning before. Just these different resistors here. There's a few different models. One's for PS4, one's for PS5. I think this one might be for Xbox too, but I'm not really sure. Keep a few extra little parts here. But I'm going to solder that in, and probably not going to show that, but that's very straightforward. And it'll probably be a follow-up video just to test the calibration and compare this name brand. I didn't know too much about these, but these are, let's see what this one's called, the ginfull. I'll show this on the other camera here. It's the ginfull. I'm not sure what version. Apparently there's many versions of these ones. Some have a bigger magnet or a different shaped magnet to do whatever. Definitely no expert on what's what, but as long as it works and hopefully it lasts. Apparently there's a new GitHub to calibrate that. We'll investigate that. Otherwise, people typically stick a pin in those little holes for the X and Y different values, and just calibrate it using one of those programs like DS for Windows or Game Tester or one of those other programs. I'm going to solder this in and we'll go from there. But that's the basics of trying to remove one. Like I said, typically what I would do is, if it's garbage anyway, it's much easier to snip it out and pull each piece out carefully. It's a very good chance you will not damage the board that way. The hot air did work, but you have to be careful not to melt those little different connectors and stuff. Well, thanks for watching this one. Alright, last part of the video. Just want to try to fix the calibration of this new Hall effect. You can see on the left it's up quite a bit. I'll move it around here. That's typically normal, even if you put a regular one in. It has to be calibrated with one of those little tiny calibration boards, or a lot of messing around. So on the GitHub here, there's a DualShock calibration GUI somebody made, and it's actually done very well. So I'm just going to follow the steps. I'm going to follow this guide. You can see it's moving the controller on this, probably checking the range of it. And now we look, it actually fixed it, right? Totally in the middle here. And let's see if we could calibrate permanent. All right, looks pretty good. So give that a shot and see how it turns out. Thanks for watching.